Good morning. Good to see you all today, and you heard my remarks to the General Assembly at the beginning of this special session, and this is primarily to take any questions that you have. I will say that I'm very pleased with the way the legislature's come together on most of the issues. I'm very optimistic they will be able to get out in 3 days or close to it, but I like the way the session has started and the spirit that's here. With that, I'll take any questions.
Senator Hickey and some other lawmakers today have filed a competing proposal to your highway plan that would limit it just to the coming fiscal year. I guess, what do you think about the proposal, and why not just make a one-year plan versus a 5-year plan?
Great question, and the answer is which I emphasized in my remarks to the General Assembly, that this is not a one-time fix. It's not a one-year plan. It's a longer-term plan. The federal highway bill goes for 5 years, and so this provides matching funds for each of those 5 years and a continuing stream of money to the Highway Commission. I would not want, and I would oppose any effort to restrict this to a one-year plan, because it is not a one-year plan. And part of the reason for that is that, if you want to pass any other plan basically has to have a tax increase. And so if you present this in January to the legislature, I doubt that the mood will be any different for a tax increase in January versus now. And so the best alternative for a longer term plan would be to present that to the voters. That can't be done till 2018. And so I applaud those that look for long-term plans for funding of our highways, and I would not suggest that my plan is the end all to all of our highway needs in this state, but it is a intermediate plan that solves the current challenge and that can get us through the next 5 years with meeting our federal match and giving us $1 billion in highway funds for Arkansas.
Can you oppose the plan in the sense that you would veto it if it reached your desk?
I've learned, and I'm not going to say what I will sign and what I will veto. I would expect what will reach my desk would be my highway plan that's been developed and presented to the legislature, and that's what I expect to sign.
So what is your strategy for getting your plan out of the Senate Transportation Committee?
Well, I've talked to the members of the Transportation Committee, and they all recognize that there's one plan out there that has the ability to meet the highway funding needs. That's my bill, and there's no one that feels stronger about highway development in Arkansas than those on the Transportation Committee, so ultimately I would expect that they would want to support that.
Governor, you said that special sessions are held during reform times. Is this going to continue? Is this a time for reform?
Well, it's a time of action, and no one wants to have repeated special sessions of the legislature. Our Constitution provides for a general session every 2 years. That's what the people of Arkansas expect. We have alternative years on budget sessions, so I want to use special sessions conservatively. I don't want to make them a routine practice, but as needs arise, as we need action in this state, that is the recourse and opportunity the governor has. I don't expect any other special sessions the rest of this year, but you never know what emergency will come up either.
Governor, there have been some talk regarding the bathroom, transgender bathroom access issue. Talk about trying to get it on the call or considered it a special session. Would you have opposed that if there had been an effort for it? And do you think Arkansas needs any kind of law similar to what North Carolina has?
I did oppose and I expressed myself to the legislatures, I did oppose adding at the last minute an additional item to address privacy in facilities. And the reason being, it had not been vetted out, it had not been reviewed, it had not been discussed and debated sufficiently, and just as importantly, this is a highway session. I did not need to have that complexity as we enter the highway session. I do think that this is going to be a continuing debate and discussion in our country, and it will probably come up in the general session next year. I have indicated to those legislators that I will be happy to work with them to address any privacy concerns that need to be addressed in light of President Obama's directive. So that'll be an ongoing point of discussion, but it's important that those discussions are thoughtful, involve a great deal of ideas and input from both legislators, but the public and impacted individuals. For example, I have asked Commissioner Key to make sure that we talk to school superintendents and principals and teachers as to how we can have an environment in the school that is safe, assures privacy, but also meets the needs of the local community and parents of people that are impacted by this. And this is not a top-down approach from Washington. That was my main objection as to what President Obama did last week, was we don't need a directive from Washington, and we want a thoughtful approach from our schools as to how we approach these very sensitive areas.
The legislature can add bills to their order of business if that one were to come up. How would you handle that situation if they, a supermajority of the legislature wanted to deal with it now?
Well, you're right. I make a call, and it sort of turned loose after that with the legislature. But I've had a wonderful conversation, very detailed, with some of the members that were pushing a new approach for facility privacy, and based upon my assurance that I will work with them in the coming months, I don't anticipate them trying to present this in this session.
Governor, why was the highway bill not completely worked out before we came in session?
Well, it was worked out.
Well, I mean, consensus, so we're just in and out. There's still some discussion about what we can pass.
Well, that's the nature of it. That's one of the reasons I like to get a bill out there early, and that way people who have saying, hey, this needs to be added, or this is wrong, this needs to be corrected, there's a better way to do it. Those are the changes that are made during the legislative process and leading up to the session. For example, there was the Representative Andy Davis had the review and approval for rules and regulations of the Highway Department. Well, that was put in the bill as a draft. It was raised as to whether that went too far by the Highway Commission. Meetings were held. They came back with a compromise and resolution saying delete the approval, but keep the review in. And so that's part of the legislative process, and so those were last-minute redrafting changes that were made based upon objections and comity and working through those issues.
There are students here from Carlos Ridge that technically who are telling legislators they should vote against the merger because it'll mean higher tuition, worse teacher-to-student ratio, and several other things. Are they just wrong to have those concerns?
Well, that's natural. I mean, there's always pride in your school, and I love seeing them here. I'm glad they're participating in it, but it is important to step back and have a bigger perspective. And in this case, the students of Crowley's Ridge do not have access to financial aid through the Arkansas Lottery Scholarship. And so by this simple merger, all of a sudden those students have greater access to financial aid. They have greater access to classes and no, I think it's all of a benefit to the students, and I've asked the legislatures to evaluate this based upon how it impacts the students. And I think when you do that, you'll see that this will be a great benefit for the students as well as a strengthening of that institution. And there's savings from any merger like this, and I would expect those savings to be poured back into the institution and make it a stronger school.
How much are we talking about in savings? I heard estimates of just, a couple $100,000, just because of administrative costs, because they're like right next door to one another.
Sure. I mean, obviously, if you merge two institutions, you don't need two presidents, and so you're going to be eliminating some positions just because of that. It's fairly modest, and the motivation, you're always looking for efficiencies, but to me, you should judge this measure by how it benefits the students and the impact on them, which is positive. We all hope that down the road we can be more efficient, and when you have institutions that are back-to-back physically, and they have virtually the same mission between a two-year college and a technical institute, that the merger makes sense.
But it ran once before though, right? Several years ago, and it didn't make it out of the Senate committee?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that there's been discussions about it for years, but it's never happened.
Your short-term chief of staff just drifted in here. Do you have any update on your chief of staff search?
I haven't made a decision on that, and we will announce it at the appropriate time. I wanted to give Michael Lambereau an opportunity to change his mind, which he has not. Did he walk in? I didn't. Oh, he's always lurking. This must be a special. Mike, do you have something you want to say to the assembled crowd? Anything else?
Anyways, just to make sure I understand on your opposition to tax increases, is your position the only way you'd support that in the future would be if it's referred out to the people?
I think you have to see what is proposed and even what would be the offsets. If you have a tax increase for highways and yet you have an offset, I would look at all of those. I think even though they're revenue neutral, it's still it's a significant shift in who is impacted. And so I would want to reserve judgment and wait to see what proposals come out. But I don't believe a pure tax increase will have a different mood in January versus now. And I think ultimately this is a kind of thing that legislators would see needs to be referred to a vote of the people because they have such ownership in it and really such a great track record. Whenever you look at the voter support for half-cent sales tax for our highways, they did that because they knew where the money was going and how it would benefit people. So the voters have got a good track record of success in long-term highway planning. And so I think ultimately that is the best alternative to have the long-term plan, but a lot of thought needs to be put into it before then.
Governor, why a Type 2 transfer instead of a Type 1 transfer of the Arkansas History Commission?
That's what we have historically done, and that's all I could say to that.
With the Royals legislation, you brought up that you vetoed it last year. You thought it was an overreach. But all of the professional players unions have come out against this. They feel that with all of the exemptions carved out, that it could create legal chaos, and it also kind of puts them on the short end of the stick. I'm wondering, what about this legislation is time sensitive? Why include it on the call? And to what you think about the exemptions detailed in the current legislation?
Great series of questions. In terms of why it was on the call, when I veto a bill with somebody that has got the support of the General Assembly, I vetoed it for the right reasons. It was adversely impacting the amateur photographers, professional photographers. And so I vetoed it for that reason, and once that's corrected, in fairness, I believe they ought to have an opportunity in this special session to pass it, and of course it's called the Frank Broyles bill because, his family, had motivation to secure greater privacy for that legacy. As to the Players Association, they're actually the advocates that pushed the bill too far the wrong direction in the last session, and what led to a lack of balance in it and led to my veto. And so I think they are an outlier in this. The major organizations have come together to support this, and I've been assured that there's the votes in the legislature to pass it, so I put it on the call.
Because of the highway funding's use of surplus money, is there sort of a minimum threshold that surplus could fall to in the next 5 years that make you reevaluate the best path forward for funding?
Let's just see how it works out. I'm really confident about this plan. One, because we've always run a surplus, because we're conservative. And secondly, we've got other options for additional funding that flows into a rainy day fund and gives us flexibility for discretionary money. And so even if we had an economic slowdown, sometimes that's actually gives an increase in earnings. So the Treasury earnings is very conservative in what we're flowing into the highways. So there's a lot of flexibility from different sources down the road for discretionary money. You always want to be hesitant about what you tap from general revenues. The 25% is conservative. It's appropriate. It puts downward pressure on legislative GIF money, is another benefit of that. And so it's a good formula. And I think what I like is that you're going to see over the next 2 or 3 years how well this works. So I believe that there will be a growing comfort level with this formula and how it works, both with the Highway Commission as well as with the legislators. So I'm optimistic about it, and I think that there will be a growing affection toward it.
Senator Hester is making a move to try to get the bill rerouted from the Transportation Committee to Revenue and Tax to support that. Is that a good move on your part?
Those are calls that are out of my control. Those are calls that are made by the Senate and House leadership, and so I leave what committee it goes to in their discretion. We think we could get it passed regardless, but so we'll leave that in their hands. All right, anything else? Thank you all very much. Great to see you again.